Let me pull this up for everybody. Let me just adjust here so that everybody can read here. All right, so Fukushima, Japan is dumping nuclear waste into their waters, but apparently they're gonna do it incrementally. Like they're not gonna just dump everything all at once. It's gonna be incremental. But there's countries that are near Japan that are concerned about this. So here's an article by Business Insider that says Russia joins China and South Korea in expressing serious concern at Japan's plan to release wastewater from the Fukushima nuclear disaster. And that disaster was now what, almost 10 years ago? It was like 2011. So the article writes Russia expressed serious concern over Japan's plan to release treated wastewater from the Fukushima nuclear disaster into the ocean. Japan announced on Tuesday that it plans to gradually waste water from the Fukushima power plant, which was the site in 2011 of one of the world's worst nuclear disasters. We express serious concern in this regard and expect the government of Japan to demonstrate due transparency, Maria, the spokesperson for Russia's foreign ministry, said on Tuesday. Russia is asking for a detailed explanations on all aspects of Japan's plans to discharge radioactive water into the ocean. Zakharova said, deeming Japan's explanations so far to be insufficient. China and South Korea have also condemned the move, calling it highly irresponsible and unacceptable. Their statements are a contrast to those by the International Atomic Energy Agency, which said in a statement on Tuesday that the procedure was safe and not especially unusual. The U.S. also praised Japan's plan. Nonetheless, Japan's three nearest neighbors, China, Russia, and South Korea, are all unhappy. In response to the announcement, South Korea summoned Japan's ambassador to and Seoul is looking into ways to bring Japan's decision into an international court. Russia also expressed regret at the fact that Japan did not consult it on the plans before going ahead, according to TASS, a Russian state news wire. So people keep in mind, like, they share a body of water and they get their food from there. Like, it's going to affect these other countries. And they don't think that Japan is being safe about this. So Zakharova said that among other missing information, official information provided by Japan does not include an assessment of environmental risk for the Pacific region. North Korea has not formally objected to the latest move, but has opposed previous versions of the plan. According to the plan, more than 1 million tons of wastewater from the Fukushima nuclear power plant, which was destroyed by an earthquake and tsunami in 2011, will be gradually released into the ocean in 2 years. The water is currently being held in steel tanks, but space is running out. The water has been treated to remove most of the radioactive contaminants, but one element, tritium, remains. Tritium is fairly harmless in low concentrations, and releasing the water gradually into the ocean will allow for the contamination to be diluted below World Health Organization recommended healthy levels, Japan has said. So Stevie and James, what are your thoughts on this? Are you guys as concerned as Russia, China, and South Korea?
Yeah. I have so many questions about this because it's just like, why, if, why are we having these, nuclear plants that we don't have any kind of plan for the waste disposal? Like we don't know what to do with this stuff. So like, why do these things? Right. I mean, of course, it's probably comes down to money, like it usually does. But I mean, like, just that is like the dumbest thing. It's just like, I don't know, what do we do with it? Throw it in the ocean? I mean, that's like the dumbest logic. I don't know. Send it to the moon. I mean, like, put it in a Tesla and send it out into space. I mean, this is what like two like stoners would come up with. Like, oh, I just chuck it in the ocean. Like, what are you doing? Like, there's science or something. Like, make it sound like there's just no way. I mean, you can't tell me that this is completely safe to just throw it out there, and it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
I've heard like I looked into nuclear a lot thanks to my buddy PCG50 about the safety of it, but I didn't ever hear about how it's safe to just dump it. Like, I'm sure there's other ways that's safer to treat nuclear waste rather than to just dumping it. Like, regardless if it disperses, like at the spot where you dump it, um like there's going to be people in that, or not people, but there's going to be organisms in that proximity that are going to be affected by this, and we're all a part of this food web. So some of the fishes, like wild caught fishes that people get from the ocean, may be contaminated with harmful levels of nuclear, like nuclear waste. But I mean, I don't know, I can look into it more.
Yeah.
PCG50 agreed to come on the show to give his perspective. He studied this stuff also. But to me, I'm with you guys. This does not sound safe to me. James, what are your thoughts?
It's like another travesty waiting to happen. I look. I get you're a billionaire. I understand that $1 billion a year just is not enough for you. But now you're destroying. You're basically destroying the future for your children and their children. I mean, nuclear waste is probably the worst. I would say it is the worst because once, let's just say a 500, let's just say a 500, uh, let's say 500 barrels of nuclear waste, cesium 133, and all this other shit that's in there, right? Is let go in some coastline, it's contaminated for I think hundreds of years. It's oil that which is still bad comes up on the coasts of Florida. When you step in it, it feels like poo or something like that. But that slowly gets somewhat filtered in the system of the ocean's process. It's still bad. It's still horrendous and horrific. There's no doubt. But this is just a terrible thing. I was at in San Onofre in Southern California, just above San Diego County, just on the coast. There's this great place for people to surf, and it's right out in front of this nuclear plant that's no longer working. But they decided to bury these giant canisters, 500-gallon canisters of nuclear waste. And I was at the protest for this, and people are just, are you kidding me? Because if one of these canisters cracks, it's going to contaminate the uh, like hundreds of miles across that just one canister. And they were and they've done it. They were able to actually get past the community. I mean, I'm just like, what? And the other, and I just wanted to point out one other thing real quick. There's a guy, I sent you a link. Um, I don't know if you share screen here, but his name is Dana Dumford,
The
right?
guy with like 24K subscribers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's been, I mean, he's kind of hard to listen to, right? He
Yeah, he
doesn't have
talks a little
perfect.
slow and he has a little bit of an accent, but
He has guys.
yeah.
Yeah, there's that guy. That's one of them. There's the other guy is an American guy. I think I know who you're talking about with the accent, but there's another guy. His name is Dana Dunford, and he's on
Mm.
live right now talking about all this shit. He's constantly been talking about all this. I actually have a blog that I started back in 2013. I put the link in the chat. Godzilla is growing in Japan, right? And he is. They're actually creating this giant monster that's going to come out and just freaking annihilate um, the oceans. And what people don't understand is your body can tolerate a very tiny amount of radioactive particles, right? But once it gets to a certain point, the mutations start happening. They've got fish there that have like three eyes and these growths on them, and they've been dumping, which people don't realize. They've actually been dumping since Fukushima Daiichi and the Japan 2011 earthquake happened. This is, I don't know if anybody has ever seen it, but that earthquake sent a tsunami rolling through those areas of Japan, destroying the towns. But most nuclear plants are next to major rivers and major oceans, bodies of water, to cool them. And the problem with that, especially in an area where, like California, they have earthquakes all the time. I kind of miss them actually, and they have earthquakes in right off the coast of Japan, where it moves vertically. Those are the most. Those are the most. Those are very bad for you. Those are the ones that cause the tsunamis. The ones in California shift like this. So a tsunami happening in California is kind of rare, but it could happen. The thing is it still causes damage. These earthquakes, the earth moves. It's a breathing. It's a living. She's Mother Nature, and the problem is this type of energy is probably is a horrific. Whose ever idea this is, whoever started this, hey, let's make a nuclear plant and fuck the world up for thousands and thousands of years, should have been hung or something or guillotined. But the thing that's most important for everybody to know is the Democrats love nuclear. The Republicans love nuclear. Both of these parties love nuclear. Most major countries are absorbed in nuclear power. And all you need is 2 or 3 of these things to just have a total meltdown like this one did, right? 2 or 3 more and everything's screwed. The actual Daiichi plant in Fukushima right now has a core that's still on fire, burning at like thousands and thousands of degrees. It's still falling into the earth at this present time. It's fucking nuts.
Yeah.
So I have a question. I mean, because you know more about this than I do. I know, very little, but were they not like storing that water? Like, was it not like in these big storage containers like they were, but they ran out of like places to put it? I mean, that's what I heard. Do you know anything about that?
There were salt mines.
Or Franco?
Yeah, there were salt mines that they were using. Just anyway, I know a lot about this.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you knew or.
Yeah, I'm right here. You can ask me anytime, babe.
Okay.
No
Well, I
problem.
didn't know you knew about that.
I know a lot about it.
Yeah, it sounds like James knows more. Like I know that they were storing it and they ran out of space, but I didn't know the more details about that.
That's what I'm wondering. Like, if it's so safe, why were they even storing it in the first place? Why weren't they just throwing it in the ocean to begin with? If it was, why bother storing it?
I'm pretty sure there's more safe solutions than that. I don't know why they're just dumping it out.
I'm not advocating for it to be thrown in the ocean or anything.
I think that there might be something economically beneficial for the private companies in Japan for dumping it. But I don't know. What do you know, James?
That seems to be the reasoning for the insanity, always, right? But just to let you know, a lot of these people are just fucking crazy anyway. They're just idiots with, they were born with a silver spoon or a golden spoon or a diamond spoon in their mouth, and all of a sudden now they have power because they were able to get elected, right? Trump, that's a very, very good plus anyway. But a lot of these people just, they don't give a fuck in their mentality. They don't care. They don't just, it's besides the money factor, which is always the first direction that I'm sure they want to go. How can we make this profitable for us? How can we turn this waste that's going to kill the Pacific Ocean and Hawaii? Hello, fucking Hawaii. God, it drives me crazy. They don't even talk about it because they can't. Tourism would suck.
I mean, plus the oceans are so delicate right now. I mean, we've killed most of the ocean as it is. So, I mean, I don't think that it can take much more of us messing with it. Like, we can't take any risk when it comes to that. I mean, and once the ocean completely dies, I mean, like, that's it. Like, game over. Like,
Yeah, and they're already
we're at that point
doing that in the coast, especially like what's it called? The estuaries and like the coral reefs are getting bleached. Like it's all going away, and it's going away at a very alarming rate. And we really need to do something about it. The science isn't advancing fast enough for it. It's not funded enough. Yeah, we really got to do something urgently.
Absolutely.
Thomas, Oklahoma, unknown brings up a great point. It says low level. Um, what do you say? It's safe, but it's not good for the environment. Like it's low level enough for it to not kill a person immediately, but it could be really harmful to the environment. We also got Josh Davis. Josh Davis, shout out to you. Solomon, DC. He's organizing for Assange. He's trying to form a DMV, Assange organization. But yeah, I just want to read some of these tweets from my friend PCG50 and get your perspectives on this, guys. But first, this is from Goshi Hosono. He says a member of the Japanese diet. But he's a blue check mark guy. He said before discharging processed / treated water, radioactive substances, including tritium or tritium, will be minimized / reduced to the standard level, and safety assessment will be also carefully conducted. So he's trying to say that this is safe because things are going to be diluted enough. But I mean, I want to see scientific evidence to this, right? What about you guys?
It's not going to happen. That's what's what's basically happening is there is a meltdown. It's Chernobyl still happening, and people don't even realize that. It's still melting. It's still going into the center of the fucking earth. If you let it sit there, because it's moving like a few inches, like every 3 to 6 months. It's going further down. But the thing is they all this the water that they're using is coolant to keep it from getting terribly bad, and that water gets completely contaminated at a very fatal rate uh, level, right? So they've been storing this for a long time, but they've also been dumping out water as well. They can't keep up with it, so they're just saying fuck it, and they're trying to paint it like it's okay, and it's going through the sifting process, which there isn't really a sifting process for a radioactive particle, right? Does anybody know? Like, is there a sponge you can use to take it out? No, there's nothing. So, in this particular case, when you were asking about the money factor, it's it's going to cost a lot of money to transport this or go store it or do it. So they're just dumping it. That's basically it. They can't keep up with it because it's still
Right.
bad. It's still terrible. It's still doing the wrong things. It's been doing the wrong things for a long time. It's actually dumping out 300 tons a day of water, right? 300 tons a day of water every day. It's still they've been doing it, but the water that they're talking about is the more there's coolant water that surrounds it, right? And then there's the direct water that is right up on it, and you're not going to be able to clean that and put it up. This is going to be a catastrophe. And the thing I was bringing up earlier is I am just not getting why Hawaii is not talking about this or trying to get
Right.
some activism for people to get out there and say, what the hell are you doing? You're about to destroy the ocean. And like Stevie's saying, that's end game, man. That's it. Once you destroy and screw up all the ocean life, like you said, the reefs are dying. They're pretty much almost dead from the bleaching. You're correct. But once you get rid of this ocean, which is part of Mother Nature that is still taking great care of us so far, that's it, man. Game over.
Yeah, and well, they try to use that whole "it's diluted" argument here. They try to pass a law, maybe a couple years ago, saying that they can put more poison in our water because here in West Virginia, because since we have such high obesity rates, that we have more body area to disperse the chemicals in. So, apparently fat people can't are like impervious to cancer. I mean, that was their logic is diluted in fat people, right? Like that was their big plan. So like I don't think that just because it's diluted doesn't mean that it's like safe, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's
And if you keep
I don't know.
consuming it over time, it'll build up. Like you're
Exactly.
consuming something diluted, but it's still staying in your system. It's not easy to detoxify that. To detoxify that, I'm sure you can eat something, but something that can help with detoxification, but it's not something common. We're not educated about it. Like, we're not educated on what foods to eat to detoxify ourselves. We're not taught that.
Oh,
And
that's
yeah,
right.
like if it's in the ocean, we get a lot of our foods from the ocean. Like, we get a lot of fish and stuff from the ocean that we eat. These fishes that we fish have hormonal issues now. Not just because of the nuclear stuff that we're dumping in, but because of the plastics, because of a bunch of other harmful materials that we're dumping into the ocean. It affects their hormones. And when we consume that, that will also affect us. And then we start having hormonal issues. And what are we seeing a rise of now? We're seeing a rise in autoimmune diseases. We're seeing an increase in depression and anxiety levels. A lot of it has to do with what we're consuming and we're putting into our body. Our hormonal levels are being affected. Like, there's studies showing how people who had the same activity level and exercises and the same exact diet in the 1980s as people today were thinner. And it's because of the differences in hormonal levels, and that's because of the shit that they put in our food, and that that's being released into our environment. It comes back and it affects us directly. But yeah,
Yeah.
just to finish off here, because I will have PCG 50 on, because I wanna give that side of the story. Like, the he's a medical student. I want to get that side of the story of, how quote unquote safe this is from that perspective, and then that can be challenged by an ecologist out there or somebody else who's studying medicine. Like, you all are welcomed on the show. I want to study this stuff more. I studied biology for many years, so I can ask really good questions about this topic, and I want to understand more and inform my audience. So this is
Uh,
from Carlos
Snork is
Martinez.
another one. Oh,
What's
sorry.
up?
Go ahead. Snork Y2K, he's also very, very knowledgeable. That's how we actually met him, was talking about this back in the day. So, yeah, he'd be another good person to talk to about it.
So yeah, yeah, I would love to reach out to him so I can have him on. But yeah, we'll talk about that after the show, so I can schedule something. So this is a tweet from Carlos Martinez, and he says, "Can you imagine the outcry in the West if China were planning to release 1.25 million tons of radioactive wastewater into the ocean? The hysteria levels would be off the charts, but hey, it's Japan, so apparently it's all good." Yeah, I mean, we're demonizing China right now because they're a competing force, a competing economic force to the United States, and so they try to use everything. They make up stories, like they bring up State Department talking points in the mainstream media that doesn't have any evidence about genocide that's happening there. They'll run with anything to try to demonize China. So I can see that happening. But PCG 50, he said hysteria level more than the ones done by the left hysteria and liberals about heavy waters filtered from heavier elements being released in the Pacific Ocean. The level of dishonesty the new left has to nuclear energy puts climate denialists and anti-vaxxers in awe. What are your thoughts on that, guys?
Okay, so we owe China $1.2 trillion. Okay, they basically own us in a sense, and I've been using this term more so than a lot of people, and people are starting to catch on because what we're seeing is, and if you watch the practices, their system, their process with their citizens or their republic, and the social engineering excuse me, the social credit they're starting to use process, where you, if you're going on the wrong site, saying the wrong things, cussing in public, doing bad things, giving somebody the finger, whatever, that goes against your social score. And these things are actually happening. And the catalyst for it was none other than this flu, right? So with that, we're starting to become China America, right? I just say it all the time. It's like, are we like fucking China America? Because we're like, I mean, I thought Korea was bad, right? But Korea is starting to look like a really nice place these days, right? North Korea, it's really starting to look like a place to vacation at compared to what's happening with our own country and the, you know, the land of the free and the brave, right? Free and the brave. And what's happening in China, it's like we're mimicking what they're doing in a sense. And I think there's a lot of control that people don't understand that China has over us, which I should do a show on, which you should do a show on. We should all do shows on because they pull a lot of strings in many different ways. If you watch over the past few decades and how they do um, their finances overall, how they create certain systems that they use. We're mimicking or following right stride by stride. Right in line with what they're starting to do. Yeah, China. If China fucking did this, or Russia, or Iran, right now, that it would be all over. You know, definitely Rachel Maddow would be, just doing cartwheels and shit like she always does when it comes to war. Yeah, yeah. So that's just where we're at. We are. I think we're China's bitch. That's all I'm saying. I'm starting to feel like we're China's bitch.
Well, I think that PCG 50 was pointing out something that, like, yeah, I mean, the people on the that claim that they're on the left, that they're Democrats and all this. I mean, they turn around and they do the things that they sit there. It was so like, well, okay, we believe in science, okay. Then they turn around and still open up more, drilling sites and do all the same things that Republicans do, as far as like impact on the environment. But then they sit there and well, they don't believe in science. It's like, well, which one's actually worse? I mean, it's one thing like, oh, I don't know that. I mean, I don't think that the Republicans are stupid. I think that they fully understand the same as the Democrats. But it's just that that's the narrative, is that they're the ones that care about the environment when they're doing the same damn things. It doesn't matter which side. It's still it's the same side. So yeah, I mean that's a good thing to point out. But yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. And
Because there's so many people that go along with it that just like, oh well, I got to vote for Joe Biden because I want to end racism and protect the environment. And I'm like, oh, that's just I don't think that's how that works.
Yeah, he's not doing that. Like John Kerry, who's Joe Biden's climate envoy, like his solution is to increase aggression, like military aggression towards Russia and China, and build more military bases around the world. That's his plan to tackle climate change.
How could that go wrong?
Right.
We only have like 800 bases, right, or something. I think, don't we need like another 500 more?
Probably 1,000 more. It's like it's like control. Equivalent to like Elizabeth Warren's like green bombs. Like that's what the Democrats do. Like their solution is completely ridiculous. It's satirical, almost like green bombs, building military bases to fight climate change. And then people buy into that.
I mean, a black lesbian dropped a bomb, on Syrians. So, progress. I mean, like that's where we're at.
I swear this stuff, like these headlines, this could be headlines for The Onion.
Yeah, I mean, like you can't even satirize this. It's so preposterous. Like every day I'm like, it couldn't possibly get crazier than this. And then it does. Then it gets crazier.
Yeah, it's like Steve always says, Steve Poikonen from Soul Newsday, like we live in a cartoon. And it's not a good cartoon either. It's a really bad cartoon that we live in.
I want out.
Yeah, I want out of this cartoon, man. It's the cartoon that who just did the Space Jam again, right?
With LeBron James.
LeBron James. I almost watched it because it's free right now, I think. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to get sucked into that. But that's like a nightmare scenario, right, for a lot of people. But it's that point. Like I said, it's a fucking circus. It's ridiculous. And when you watch, it depends on how close you are when you see that. Like if you're in the front row, you're going to see more than what you see being in the back rows. You see what I'm saying? So there's a lot of people that are witnessing the circus, but I don't think they see it correctly. Um, but we're still in it. We're still in this cartoon. It's still fucked up. The the thing that I like to point out to people when they start asking questions is is the first thing you have to do is you got to follow the money. That's the first thing. Number one, follow the money, follow the source. Where did the source come from, and who are they connected to? Like you were bringing up John Kerry. Faiz Shakar was Bernie Sanders' campaign manager. Guess who he campaigned and worked with? Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, and John Kerry. Why in the fuck would you pick that guy, Bernie? Right? Is that like the worst guy to pick for your campaign manager when Faiz Shakar still had great ties to all of these three people? It was bullshit from the beginning, and we all know it. I'm just saying the whole system's messed up. We've got to start our own. That's why uh, that's why you guys need to go to partyexodus.org. Be your own party.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, just to close off with the nuclear story, I will say, like, if the private sector is involved, then everyone should be really skeptical about it. There's hardly going to be any regulations on it, especially if they have an influence in the public sector. Like, it's a revolving door that we see. There could be a way to do it if it's like, if we're doing it along with reducing the amount of energy that we use, and we're using other forms of alternative energy and clean energy, but it shouldn't be like the main focus and like, oh, we completely replace oil and fossil fuels with nuclear energy now. Like there's going to be a big private interest, and all these other former fossil fuel people are going to be focusing on nuclear energy, and we're going to see more nuclear waste being dumped into oceans because it's just it's more profitable for these companies. So I don't know.
And if you want to know how that works out, I mean, just take a look at West Virginia and the devastation here. So, or, any number of places that do that just dump their stuff in creeks and lakes. And, look at the side effects that happens to the people. It's pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
Look, there's some people out there. I don't know. I understand the greed. I understand the control, and I understand that they, for some reason, don't care about anything. That's the part that I kind of understand, but I don't understand. Is it's they trick because of the money, they trick themselves to think that it's going to be beneficial to put another bazillion nuclear plants and keep dumping more nuclear and more fracking and more oil and more coal. And when somebody, I think there was an article a while back that said the reason why solar isn't profitable is because it's free. Because it's free. Because the sun is a free source of energy. Tides are a free source of energy. Currents in the depths of the ocean that move at like 30, 40, 50 miles an hour that are consistent are free forms of energy. Any energy that doesn't take a lot of industry, banks and loans to keep it working, etc., they don't want to have any part of.
Yeah, nature is a direct threat to profits for sure.
Yeah, nature's nature's who they've been. I think it is. I think they just hate Mother Nature. I think that's what it is. They just fucking hate her to death.
They don't like anybody standing in the way of profits. So eliminate competition, right?
Which is counterproductive, because what are they going to do eventually when they run out of the resources that they need to sell people that they're over exploiting?
It's like an addict, right? I mean, they don't think about tomorrow. They just gotta get their money today.